So we're going to go over a little bit more of Module 4 and interpreting medians and the 5-number summary. And I'm going to go into StatCrunch. And again, if you've already layered your screen and you can work along with me if you like. But this is the main page for StatCrunch. And in order to get to, I've got the data that we took in class from when we measured our arm span and our height. I've got the data here in our groups. So I'm going to go to my groups. I think Joel loaded up the data for us. And the Math 112, there's our group. And looking at data sets, I think I'm just going to look up height. I forgot what he named it. But if I look up height, this is it. The height in inches compared to arm span, also measured in inches. So I'm going to click on that data set. And so this is a lot of times how you can get to data without having to punch it all in if I've already loaded it for you. So notice that this data set is set up importantly in that each of the rows represents the same person. So this data is connected by the same person. That's not going to matter for the first half of class, but it is going to matter for the second half when we go over Module 5. So this first person in row 1, they had a height of 61.75 inches, and their arm span was 62.5 inches as well. The next thing that I'm going to do is go and make a couple box plots for each of these. But let's first write what I just said we were going to do. I'm going to write down what our observational unit is and what our variables are. So our observational unit, or let's go variables first. So our variables are the height in inches. And then the other variable is the arm span, also in inches. I'm just going to put variable 1 and 2. So we have 2 variables here. And then our observational unit, all these came from what? Where did these numbers come from? You can unmute. Where did I get my height and my arm span from?
As students.
Yeah, so our observational unit is a student in Math 112S, the spring of 2024. So that's our observational unit. And then to go make a box plot, I'm going to go to graph. So I first have to go back to my mouse. I'm going to go to graph, and box plot is right down here. Now, the thing with the box plot that we want to be careful with, I'm going to do both the height and the arm span. Let me get this out of your way. Select this, move it a little bit over here. So I'm going to do both height and arm span. But we want to be careful when we do a box plot. We don't want to first, we won't use fences to identify outliers first. And I always like our box plots drawn horizontally. So I'm going to check this box to draw the box plots horizontally. And that's all you have to do. Check your data, check that your boxes are drawn horizontally. I unclicked the fences for the outliers for now, and I push compute. And then we've got 2 box plots here for height and for arm span. And when we hover over each of the box plots, we'll see that we've got a lot of information given to us. If you hover over any part of the box plot that's part of the 5-number summary, notice it'll click, it'll come up with all these this list of data for you. So first thing we see the number of values. There are 24 heights that we collected. That's the number of observations. The IQR comes up first. The IQR, which is the distance of the middle 50%. I don't know why it's not holding for me. I'm trying to get that back up on the screen. Oh, that's weird. Okay, there it is. The IQR is 3.875 inches. So the middle half of the class is their heights are only different by 3.875 inches. The minimum was 59.5 inches. The maximum was 76 inches. And so on. Our median was 66.875. So I might yeah, it won't let me take a picture of it. But I can write these data values down over here. So we've got, usually if Joel's here, he'll take a picture. Can anybody jot these measurements down really quickly? And so
I
that I
went
don't
ahead
have
and
to.
I
What's that?
screenshotted it. I went
What's
ahead
that?
and screenshot it. I screenshotted it. I'll put it in
Oh,
the notes.
awesome. Perfect. Okay. So go ahead and read it to me. We've got the just the 5 number summary. The minimum was how much? It was like 59.5 or 50. Oh, you're on mute, Brittany. Sorry.
How about now?
Yeah, that's good.
So sorry.
That's okay.
59.5 for the minimum.
Okay.
And
And I'm just
then
going to put inches there. Okay. And then the Q1.
the Q1 is going to be 64.75.
Okay.
And then where we
The
want to go
median.
down to median,
Uh-huh.
66.875.
Okay. And then
Q3,
Q3. Mm-hmm.
yes, 68.625. And then our max is at 76.
76.
Correct.
Cool. Okay. So that's our 5 number summary just for the heights. And then we also have a 5 number summary for the arm span, but I won't get to the arm span yet. So what you want to be able to do for me is if I were to say, interpret, the first quartile. So if I were to say, interpret the first quartile. So if I said, interpret the first quartile for heights. Just set for student heights. So what do we know with the first quartile? What I want you to do whenever we're interpreting quartiles, medians, percentiles later, is we need to have a percentage attached to our interpretation. So what's the percentage attached to the first quartile?
Is it 25?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so 25% is going to be our percentage attached to the first quartile. And then so 25%. And then what is the actual value of the first quartile? That's up in our list. That's 64.75 inches. So we got to make sure we have our units on there. So those are the 2 things we need to connect. And we just need to understand what that percentage refers to is how many students are in this region right here. So here's the first quartile standing right there on the lower end of the box in the box plot. And we know that 25% is which direction? Is it to the left or is 25% to the right?
Isn't it to the left?
Yeah, see how we've got only 1/4 below. This right here is another quarter where you go from the quartile to the median. The median to the third quarter is another quartile is another quarter. And each of these sections in the box plot is a quarter. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters total. So when you're at Q1, there's only 1/4 below that value. So if we want to interpret the first quartile, what we're going to do is we know that 25% of what? 25% of our observational unit. What was our observational unit? 25% of, go back up, look at our observational unit.
A student in math,
Yeah,
112 S.
25% of students had a height that was 64.75 inches or less, right? Because to the left would be, or your left, to the left would be less. So that's how we're going to interpret our medians, quartiles, percentiles. So 25% of students had a height that was 64.75 inches or less. So that's this group we're looking at right here. We're looking at this group here. And does anybody remember how many students we said there were total? It says so there. How many students did we measure total?
$24.
Yeah, 24 total. So in this quarter right here, there are going to be 6 students. There are 6 students sitting in that. How'd I get that 6?
Don't you divide it by into 4 parts?
Yeah, I either
24.
divided it into 4 parts, so I took 24 divided by 4. You could also, that's the same as taking 25% of 24, right? So either one of these ways that I did this, I just know that I've got, okay, there's 6 students here. There's 6 students in that next quarter. There are 6 students here. There are 6 students here. And then there are 6 students in that whisker on the right. Okay? And you just do that by, like Lizette said, you just divide it by 4. Or you can take 25% of 24, because that's what we said. 25% of students had a height that was this value or less. Okay. So you guys go ahead, and what I want you to do is go ahead and chat in the chat. Just make sure you're only chatting to me. And I'll start here. So in the chat, make sure you're not, instead of it saying everyone, just say A. Conley, I think is me. But I want you to, I'm going to type the first thing, interpret the third quartile for heights. And just you reply in a chat just to me. And if you don't think you can get the whole sentence, then at least give me the percentages. Nice. I think that was that Bishop who sent me? Thank you. Cool. Yep, you're right with the 75%, Stephanie. Okay, so Madison, make sure we're thinking 3/4. So 3/4 um, would be 3 sets of 25. Cool, cool. All right, Lizzie, I got yours as well. And Stephanie, yes, that's the right value. Now put together your two thoughts. So I still have a few people to hear from. I got yours, Brittany. That's close. Lizeth, I think I gave you the third quartile. Did you look at the list? Yeah, that's right. That's right, Stephanie. Okay. So I'm getting some good feedback from you guys. I know it's very odd, because you're not seeing what people are saying, but I want to take some of these um, and just kind of go over them. Okay. So I had a couple of people. I'm going to erase what I wrote before. Let me just erase this. Okay, so let's take a look. I think a lot of you are good when we're looking just at this information right over here, this Q3. Oh, I can't circle very well here. Let me try again. I'm using my mouse. So here we go. We got Q3 here. That information is what we're dealing with. Okay. So if you had, just think about it, if you had 3/4 in your pocket, how much money would you have? If you had 3/4 in your pocket, you'd have 75 cents. So third quartile, a lot of you knew, if we're interpreting the third quartile, a lot of you knew that we're dealing with 75%. Okay, so what about the 75%? And then remember the 68.625, that's not a percent, that's inches. So 68.625. And this, the quotation marks I'm putting at the end, that means inches. That's shorthand for inches, just so you guys know. So I've got to put these two bits of information together. So let's take a look again at where the third quartile is. The third quartile sits here on the upper end of the box. And so how much of the data is above? What percentage is above that? There's only 1/4 above, but there are 3/4, 1, 2, and 3/4. Where? Below it. Do you guys see that? So when we're interpreting quartiles or anything that ends with an aisle, we're always looking at how much of the data is below it. So that 75% is here. 25, this whole thing is 50%. This whole length, that's 75%. So if I'm going to write this as a complete sentence, it's 75% of our observational unit. So that's students. 75% of students had a height of 68.25, or sorry, 625, isn't it? 625 inches. So I had some people just write this. Can you guys see the sentence on your screen? 75% of students, okay, had a height of, I had some people stop right there. But that means that that would mean that we have everybody on that one point at 68.625. We'd have what is that, 18 students who were exactly 68.625. And that's not what we're saying here. We're saying they had a height of 68.625 or where?
I put more, but is it less?
It is less. It's always less because,
Hey,
yeah, it's always less because only
okay,
25% is more, right? So
right.
75% of students had a height of 68. So just, and I always remember it by, quartile. There's an L in quartile. There's no M, so no more. There's an L in quartile, so it's always less. The quartile always refers to how much is less than that point. Okay. So let's take a look at the arm span. And as I go here, and now I want you guys, this is the arm span. Notice there were the same number of students, 24 students. So there are 6 students arm spans in each quarter of the data in each section of the box plot. Looking at the Q3, it's 66.125. Again, that's inches. So go ahead and interpret for me. Again, you can do it in the chat, just a personal chat to me. How would you interpret that Q3 for the arm spans? How would you interpret Q3 for the arm spans? Again, the amount for Q3 is 66.125, the inches for the third quartile. Good, Lizzie, very good. Perfect, Stephanie. Okay, Benny, again, what if it's the third quartile, 3/4 is how many cents?
75.
Yeah, so the percentage is going to be 75. Good, Lizeth. Good, Bishop. And good, Stephanie, or Brittany, sorry, Brittany as well. Anybody else? Maddie, did you want to try? Yeah, good. Now put it in a sentence, Benny. Good, Kim. Cool. So it seems like we're getting the idea. So it's very similar to what we wrote for the height. It's just it's a different variable. So if it's Q3, it's always going to be 75%. And the observational unit is the same. 75% of students had an arm span that was, oh gosh, what's the number again? 66.125. Was that it?
Yes, 6.125.
Inches or less. So very similar to what we had. I don't need you guys to be too creative. This isn't an English class. I don't need you to, put it in a new interesting format. I need you to be able to know that we have 3/4 of the students at this point or less. It's always going to be at this point or less when you're interpreting it straightforward like that. And then the first quartile, I'll just say this one out loud. Or does anybody want to say it for the first quartile. Anybody want to say it out loud? Interpret. I'm trying to get the value up. Sorry. Interpret the first quartile for this one.
I can do it.
Go for it, Brittany.
25% of students had an arm span of less than 57.25.
Cool.
Or is it 25 more than?
No, you're
They're
right with
all
the
always
less.
less.
I would just say 20, you said 25% of students have an arm span, and you said have an arm span of less than 57.25, but you have to also include the 57.25. So it's easier just to say 25% of students had an arm span that was 57.25 inches, or not 57, 61.75 inches or
Oh.
less.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was saying the wrong thing
it's
too.
easier to say that. Yeah.
Okay.
So 25% of students had an arm span that was, I forget what it was again, 61.75 inches or less. Cool.